full disclosure, I did consider lying because that's so embarrassing. Pooping your pants in high school and leaving the poop there in the hallway? Unforgivable.
I wonder if, like, do you guys remember when we talked about what was the incident at your high school? I wonder, like, if for some people their incident is your poop in the hallway.
Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
And hey, if you're new to the show, thanks for checking us out. Push that follow or subscribe button like you're submitting your final payment on your student loan so you never miss an episode every Wednesday. And maybe if you no longer have student loans, we'd appreciate your support on Patreon or Apple Podcasts. And you can also visit millennialshow.com for more about our show. We don't rip fans off, right, Laura?
No, we definitely don't. And wow, what a way to intro this story. So we're going to kick off this week by talking about Watcher Entertainment, all the drama that they have brought on themselves in the last couple of weeks. Watcher Entertainment, as I mentioned, found itself in hot water with its fans after announcing that it would be leaving YouTube and begin posting its content exclusively behind a paywall on its new subscription-based streaming service, Watcher TV. Some background here for anyone who isn't familiar with Watcher Entertainment.
Myself included.
This was formed in January of 2020, so height of the pandemic, when its creators, Stephen Lim, Ryan Bergara, and Shane Madej, broke away from BuzzFeed. They were the ones behind the popular BuzzFeed series of shows, BuzzFeed Unsolved. So they had some that were more paranormal focused, some that were more true crime focused, and they had, a few other shows, but BuzzFeed Unsolved is definitely what I think they were most known for at that time. It's certainly what I followed the most closely because I was, I have been a fan of them. But since they left BuzzFeed and founded Watcher Entertainment and started their YouTube channel, they have amassed a really large YouTube following. Much of it they're following from BuzzFeed that just continued consuming their content when they broke off and went independent. They boast more than 400 million views on YouTube, which made this decision to leave YouTube and start their own streaming platform even more questionable. A lot of people in the comments were wondering, like, what the hell happened that made you decide this was a good idea? But we'll get into a little bit more of that later. But I've actually been a fan and followed the Ghoul Boys, Ryan and Shane, as they're known, ever since their days at BuzzFeed.
So what made you fall in love with them over the years? And why are their fans so upset right now?
Originally, their content felt very scrappy, very authentic. It had low production quality, but that was part of the charm of it, honestly. And I think similar to what we hear a lot of people talk about when they're speaking about parasocial relationships, it kind of felt like I had one with them because you just got to know these creators over the many, many hundreds of hours of content that they'd put out there. All of their content is unscripted, so it's very much off the cuff, and you get a really good sense of their personalities. And I think particularly before this move, their authenticity, I think, created a sense for their followers that they really were working on this as a passion project first and foremost. And I think that this announcement of moving to a paywall platform, taking everything off YouTube and, leaving YouTube pretty much for good, made people question that, made people question the authenticity, because ultimately this felt like a huge cash grab.
People love the authentic feel. That's why they do take off to begin with. That's why people loved podcasting. That's why we've enjoyed doing podcasts. That's why TikToks can really resonate with people. You feel like you're just watching everyday people out there complaining or entertaining.
Definitely. So where the shit hit the fan, or where it started for them, was they teased something big is coming with a countdown to an announcement across all their social channels. And the fans were really, really excited about this and were theorizing about all the different things it could be. People were wondering if it would be better benefits on their Patreon, which we'll talk about in a few moments. The announcement was of this paywall and them leaving YouTube. So the announcement was essentially, hey, all of our content that you've been consuming largely for free for years is now going to be paywalled, and you're going to have to pay $5.99 a month to continue to access it once we move everything over. And any of our new releases are also going to be paywalled. Hey, we hope you'll follow us from being able to consume all of this content completely for free to now having no choice but to pay for it if you want to continue watching it.
And if you're a patron.
Yeah, their patrons didn't get any kind of preferential treatment here. So you would think, because they have a Patreon that has north of 12,000 paid supporters who are paying at least $5 a month. Some of them are paying $100 a month. They did not get free access to Watcher TV. They didn't even get a discount on it. They were completely unconsidered.
Yeah.
That was the part that was the wildest to me. When I heard about this, I don't watch Watcher, but I'm fairly well versed in most of the bigger YouTube things that are happening. I just kind of thought, okay, well, like, here we go. If this goes well, we're going to see probably a huge shift in how YouTubers try and transition into something else where they're getting a bigger slice of the pie. But as somebody that's on a show where we, have Patreon commitments, it was just crazy to me to see these large creators operate in a way that it made it seem like they completely even forgot they had people that were supporting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge oversight, especially considering that they have a whole team behind them. They have executive producers. They have all these people, and nobody said, hey, guys, maybe you should think about the Patreon.
Or the logical step forward would have been, you know what? We are going to leave YouTube, but we are moving exclusively behind a paywall on Patreon, and just put everything right there instead of launching another streaming app, I guess, or website. That's the part that doesn't make sense to me, because you already have this built up base on Patreon, and presumably these are all happy customers. You're going to get even more people signing up for your Patreon if you do leave YouTube and just host your videos exclusively on Patreon. I've been there as a podcaster. There have been, not with this show, obviously, but there's been a show or two in my past where we have moved exclusively behind a paywall, and it got people to sign up. And this is exactly what they would have experienced as well.
Justin in the Discord is saying, aren't they like anti-capitalist as well?
Yeah.
So it's hard to make a capitalist move. This is what I kept seeing online when all of this was happening in real time, that, they've repeatedly made statements like, we need to eat the rich, like the poor are just getting poorer and stuff. So then to do something like this that feels like a blatant cash grab and a complete ripoff / slap in the face to their paying supporters kind of seems like the antithesis of everything they've been saying on camera.
Yeah. And the eat the rich stuff particularly comes from Shane. He's my favorite, to be perfectly honest. And I think he is a fan favorite because he comes across as so down to earth and very anti-capitalistic moves. And he's frequently the one who says, eat the rich. Their fans were very quick to point out in numerous of their comment sections things like, well, Stephen Lim, who's the CEO of Watcher, brags all the time about how he owns a Tesla. No offense, Andrew.
This is
Andrew's like, oh no, am I the Stephen of Millennial?
Okay, the difference is we're not trying to paywall all of our content. and tell the
That's
rest
true.
of our audience, sorry, sucks to suck. Like that's not how you do this. And I mean, he's someone who will brag about like lots of fancy meals. Like Ryan goes to Lakers games all the time. He had a very fancy beach wedding, like, and none of these are things that I judge them for the record, but their fans were very quick to point those things out. And a lot of them were making the point of saying, hey, it kind of seems like you may have scaled too quickly because ultimately, you know, Watcher wants to be less reliant on advertisers. They mentioned finding it harder and harder to find advertisers that aligned with them. I don't know how much I believe that because, I mean, just I watch a few other YouTubers and it seems like if you're big enough, the deals are out there.
And YouTube has an ad platform where they'll handle all that for you. Like, sure, they might not be direct ad deals, but with the volume of views they get on their videos, you mentioned 400 million views on the platform. Even their most recent videos get 1 million views a pop. Like, they were surely generating a good chunk of change.
Plus, they do long form. That means they can add multiple ad breaks.
Right. And they do. They have them. And that
I'm sure they do.
That I think it's the interesting thing about the way this played out and like the way that they tried to frame it in their departure video, because they posted a video titled Goodbye YouTube. And we can talk about that in a second.
Dramatic.
Oh God, it was ridiculous. But their whole thing was like, one, we want to be able to invest in the equipment to make TV quality unscripted content for y'all. And their followers have been very quick to point out to them, like, we don't really care about that. So it seems like this misalignment where it's like they really care about creating that kind of content, but it doesn't seem like their fan base cares that much about it. And the other thing is they're wanting to charge $5.99 a month for this or $60 a year. That's basically the same price as some of these lower tiers on bigger subscription platforms like Netflix or like Hulu. So
and you're
to
getting
think
way
that,
more content at that price.
I was just gonna say,
and like a bigger variety of content from a bunch of like different studios and creators. So to think that at a time when people are really having to think about what streaming services they want to pay for, you're taking something that was completely free, you're paywalling it, and you're saying, pay me as much for this as basically you pay for Netflix, maybe. It's not smart. The other thing is, Andrew, you brought up YouTube having, you know, ads that they can implement. You can upgrade to, what is it, YouTube TV?
YouTube Premium to go ad-free.
YouTube Premium, thank you, to go ad-free. So why wouldn't if somebody didn't want the ads in their Watcher content, why wouldn't they just upgrade to YouTube Premium and enjoy an ad-free experience across all of YouTube?
Right. And as an aside, I am a YouTube TV customer, and they really need to throw in YouTube Premium for free because YouTube TV is like $75 a month these days, which it's getting harder and harder to justify. They've raised the price a lot.
Shocking that it's not bundled already.
Yeah, or I'll pay an extra like $5, but YouTube Premium's like another 12 at least a month currently, which is too much. But Laura, you mentioned like that authenticity factor, and one of the comments on one of the videos that they posted jumped out to me. Somebody said, I genuinely cannot comprehend how YouTubers don't understand that a lot of people watch long-form YouTube content because they're sick of overproduced TV content. We literally do not want more overproduced content or more streaming services. A comment like this blows my mind because your audience is inviting you to do stuff for cheaper, and you're still like, you know what? No, we're not going to do that, and we're going to double dip with Patreon and a streaming app. And maybe it's like a licensing play for the future. They're thinking like, if we could produce content like this, maybe we can sell it to Discovery at some point down the road.
Yeah. And to that point about selling to Discovery down the line, I feel like they would have been better off just trying to do that now, investing in trying to sell one of their existing series to another network or even to a streamer. We've seen YouTubers do that before. Miranda Sings has done that with Netflix. The Try Guys had their short-lived Food Network show. there's like plenty more, but like streamers right now, they're looking for content like that, as from what I'm reading, at least in the trades. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also because they kind of are true crime adjacent, it's trendy. I feel like they
Yeah.
basically, like, I don't know what their research was showing, but it feels like they just threw a bunch of money away by engineering this streaming platform for themselves without actually even stopping to wonder if people would even want that.
I know. It really
it's
makes
really out of touch. Like to Andrew's point about cord cutting.
Exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think they don't have anyone in research really. And they definitely don't have a PR person, because I feel like a PR person would have been like, this is horrible. This is a horrible idea. Don't do this.
Well, supposedly they can't even afford to pay the staff they have. So,
well, maybe if they stopped wanting to produce this upscale, quote, TV quality content, they could afford to pay the staff they have. And I think that's the point that a lot of their fans were pointing out to them. And I don't know if y'all saw the comment sections. I mean, on YouTube, I know, Andrew, you saw that one, but on Instagram, I mean, literally everywhere where they have a social presence, Twitter, they were just getting raked over the coals about this decision. From what I saw, there was literally no one who was excited who wasn't like a friend of theirs or somehow close to them reacting to it.
God,
everyone just universally panned this decision.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for online creators is that fans don't mind if the content isn't as nicely polished as you would get from a production company. And we see this all the time on TikTok. The edits that people make are really bad. You're cutting into syllables. You hear like a click when an edit is made because you're like cutting into a breath. Stuff like that drives me crazy as an editor. But that's what people expect these days. And when they're flipping through TikTok, the shittier it looks, the more real it feels. It's like, oh, this is a real person. This is not an ad I'm about to watch. So that type of thing resonates with people. And I heard from somebody who spoke to a TikTok rep a few weeks ago who said it is a sort of race to the bottom in terms of like how content is made, because if it looks too polished on TikTok, you automatically assume it's an ad and you're going to flip right past it.
Oh, so what you're saying is we should stop trying so hard. We're trying too hard.
Well, I actually don't think we're trying too hard. Chloe does a great job with the videos, but the editing style, I think, feels authentic. And we're not making ads, so I guess we know.
I'm just playing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just playing. Yeah. I mean, the thing that really strikes me here is that me and Mark were talking about this yesterday, actually, because we're both Watcher fans and we were both frustrated by all of this. And it's kind of shocking that they went about trying to get more funding in this way, because there are other YouTubers and other creators who've been able to expand their reach and break into more expensive forms of media to produce. But the way they've done that is by organically growing their audience, strategically paywalling some things, not everything. Because if you paywall everything, that's going to limit the exposure to a greater audience to follow you, right? I'm thinking about like Markiplier. I think he's a great example. I mean, he started out as like a gaming YouTuber and he still is, but he's literally making a movie right now, like a legitimate movie. But the only reason he got there is because he was really strategic about knowing when to ask his fans for help to crowdfund things, which they happily did. And I think in the case of Watcher, their fans would have done it too. But also knowing like how to run a merch operation, how to work with advertisers strategically, and ultimately how to not like stretch his budget too thin. And I really feel like that's where Watcher went wrong. they flew too close to the sun in terms of trying to achieve a level of show quality that they aren't yet in a financial position to be able to achieve reasonably.
I really just think it comes down to they shouldn't have double dipped with Patreon and this Watcher subscription.
Yeah.
I think they could have gotten away with this if they only moved to the Watcher subscription or only moved everything to Patreon. But you can't have both because people are already accustomed to the Patreon membership. And I know that putting everything behind a paywall is a big move, but think of how many people are going to subscribe to your Patreon because you are going behind a paywall exclusively. And yeah, they would take some heat for a little while, but you're going to make more money, so it's okay.
I don't know.
And to that point, they also could have framed that and said, hey, we're leaving Patreon. Please come and support us for a flat rate of whatever they wanted to charge. And we're doing this because we just want to be able to pocket all of your support and cut out the middleman, and that extra money is going to be able to help us do X, Y, Z. That's all they had to say.
That's a thought that came to my mind too, but I'm also thinking there's got to be some fees associated with the credit card processing, with their whatever platform they're using behind the scenes.
But I assume it would have been less.
Maybe, but I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk with people at Patreon. They could negotiate a good rate with people at Patreon. Like, look, we're going to double our numbers, but we want a better rate at Patreon. We're even grandfathered into a certain plan on Patreon because we've been there for so long.
I know.
That's right.
Yeah, but I guess like moving to a streamer, they would have had the option of like strategically raising the price here and there, like every other streamer does. And so maybe that was like the end game goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There are so many like questions that seem so obvious that I feel like we're never going to get answers to because they just didn't bother to think any of this through.
Yeah, that's really how it seems. And I mean, I want to approach this with humility because even though we're a much smaller operation, we also don't want to be beholden to like corporate overlords or sponsors who put a ton of demand on us. And we're really proud to be a listener-supported show. But I understand that it can be a difficult line to walk. But I look at what we do and some of the work that we're doing. I mean, we, first of all, provide a shit ton more bonus content on our Patreon than they do on theirs, which is crazy to me. We use those proceeds to fund the shows and to fund the operation and keep them going. But we're also working on other things, not things that we're like, we have clear details to talk about at this point, but we're using the platform that we've built to figure out how we can expand and what other ventures we can pursue. And it's just striking to me that wasn't a consideration for them.
See, I disagree with that. Surely they're using this to continue growing the network. Wasn't that the point? Because launching new shows.
Yeah, but how are you going to grow it if you paywall everything?
That's what I was just going to say. How are you going to get new people invested enough to pay for it?
Yeah. Well, and I think the big difference between like a millennial-sized show compared to the Watcher Network is that they're already all full-time on it. Like an eventual goal for all of us is to be full-time in our little media empire. And you just look at them and it reeks of success. Whereas with Millennial, like, yeah, people love the show and we greatly appreciate your support. But do you look at Millennial and you're like, well, they made it.
Well, no. No, they look at us and go, look at them. They're scrappy. But no, I mean, to that point, like this is, sometimes I talk to, like my brother who's in marketing about this, and he's just like, like, I feel like if you guys were just a little bit bigger, you'd be thinking, oh, maybe we actually need to bring on an executive producer, or you need to bring on like a booker or somebody that is just like a handler. And it's like, yeah, but like we literally do it all here. We are the hosts. We are the producers. We are the talent finders.
We are the world.
It's just Yeah, we are the children.
No, that's a really good point too, because sometimes you'll listen to a podcast and then you'll get to the end of it and they do the credits and they list off 3 executive producers, 1 editor,
Right.
this and that, all these different people involved. I'm like, shit, that sounds nice.
I know, right?
Extra editors.
Extra
That's something else that we
editors.
do in-house.
Yeah, I mean, this is truly a homegrown. Maybe we need to look scrappier. Maybe that's our problem. We need to
And we're too polished.
I need to push all these books off the shelf behind me, and you need to see cobwebs.
Like, for just $2 more, you can help Andrew remove cobwebs from his background.
I got 4 fans pointed on me because I can't afford air conditioning.
But you have a Tesla.
Right. That's where all the air conditioning money went.
But see, you don't see me talking about that much. I used to
No.
mention it. I've never mentioned my yacht. I've never mentioned my summer home. I don't brag about these things.
That's the thing is I think to their fans, it really seemed like they were flaunting a certain lifestyle and then poor mouthing to be like, we can't afford to run our business. So it's like, which is it?
Yeah.
Right.
All of that is to say the backlash was enough for Watcher to quickly backtrack on that decision. Ultimately, all of their shows are still going to be available for free on YouTube, but Watcher TV subscribers will begin receiving new episodes ad-free 1 month early. And current Patreon members will get a free subscription code to Watcher TV / be refunded if they already subscribe to it.
Good. Because whoever's pledging $100 a month should definitely get free access to that streaming platform.
Yeah.
100%. And again, their patrons weren't offered anything up front
That's
with this, which is wild.
Well, I'm sure a lot of big YouTubers are going to be studying everything that happened very carefully. And again, I would just rest easy knowing that YouTube viewers want less in some ways in terms of production quality. Sure, have good lighting, have a little studio, but some of the editing that goes on and the production values that go on, look at the Green Brothers. That still feels homegrown. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They put a camera in front of each of them and they got that tight editing going on. And yeah, it looks good, but it still feels like they made it themselves. Maybe they still are editing themselves.
Right. Probably not.
Yeah.
But they're at least able to give the impression of something authentic.
Yeah.
Basic, not bad basic, but bare bones, right? Because the reason people watch them, the reason people followed Watcher, follow us, whatever creators they follow, I don't think it's that any one of us creators is saying or doing something that's so radical that people are like, holy shit, I must listen to this person. It's because we all tend to like the people that we follow like that. It goes back to that parasocial relationship. And I think when you fracture the trust that relationship was based on, you end up like Watcher. So,
well,
let's vow to never do something like this.
Yes, I agree with that. Laura, as somebody who's been a big fan of Watcher, will you support their new streaming service?
No.
Were you ever a patron?
No, actually, I haven't been because their Patreon sucks. I would be if their Patreon didn't suck.
Okay.
How can you convince me to want to pay $6 a month for content that I'll eventually be able to see on YouTube for free?
Yeah. No,
it doesn't make
very good point.
sense.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder how successful this streaming service is even going to be now.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
But they probably already sunk so much money into creating this new platform that they still got to give it a shot.
For sure.
They were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. Dr. Ian Malcolm.
I was going to say having their Jurassic Park moment.
Okay, well, we are going to talk about the best things about being a millennial. We're going to take a positive spin on being a millennial. But first, Pam needs help with a down payment on her new beach home. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Oh my God.
We're often hearing the downsides of being a millennial, and surely we talk about those on the pod from time to time, and surely they are valid. But I was on Reddit last week and I saw this thread asking what are the best things about being a millennial? And actually, there's quite a few things. So we have our own to share, but first, I'm going to pull some of the ones that I saw on Reddit. First of all, and I think this is probably one of the biggest ones, we got the benefits of tech without the childhood being tracked and judged by teenagers. And this especially hits when you think about features like Apple's Find My Friends, or, the Snapchat map. Parents these days, they want access to their kids' location at all times because they can get it through the phone or the Apple Watch or whatever else. And I think parents might get a little addicted to it. They get used to knowing where their kids are at all times. And then you're being monitored all the time. I am so glad, not that I ever went out or had a life, but I'm so glad that my parents were never able to track me at this granular level.
Same.
Yeah, it's good and bad too. Like I remember there was one time when my uncle, he was looking to see where his boys were, and one of them didn't appear to be at school. And he called, and it turns out that whatever tracker he was using had malfunctioned. He had been in the math class the whole time, but he made a big stink about being like, my kid's not there, go check to see if he's there. And they were telling him at the front office, sir, he is marked as there. He's been here all day. And yeah, it was like this big old mess. I'm sure that still happens with parents because you don't know if your kid leaves the phone in the car, for example, so they might look like they're off campus. I used to park off campus in high school.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different reasons why, if you like, paranoid parents might check and then see that their kid doesn't look like they're in school.
Yeah, it was just a different world. Like, I remember as a kid, I walked to school by myself for a few years because my school was literally across the street. And
mine too, actually.
I walked to school by myself. I came home by myself. It was never something I thought about. I'm sure it was something my parents thought about. I think all parents probably worry to an extent about that kind of thing, but it wasn't to the level that I think it is today now that parents can track their kids. And me and my friends in that neighborhood, we were menaces. We were out and around all the time. We were playing street hockey and we were getting lost in the woods and hanging out in the alleyway, throwing dog shit in the pool of this really mean lady who used to yell at us all the time. So we were like, guess what, ma'am?
Dang.
So like we were able to do that. And man, during the summer, we would be out from morning until the streetlights came on at night. And it was pretty rare for anyone's parents to be upset about that. Like, I would definitely check in. Like, I would go home once or twice a day so that my parents didn't think I was dead.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't a great amount of concern because my parents trusted me to be responsible. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think they just had a greater sense of like faith in the community to take care of kids. But they would also like say, well, also if you had like we had like a neighborhood with kids, right? Yeah. And so it was always, the mentality was like, oh, it's fine. The older ones will take care of the younger ones. Yes. And looking back, I was thinking to myself, the older ones were like maybe 3 years older and that's it. So it's not a lot when you think about it that way. But they would let us go down to the community pool, to the store 2 miles away to get like, candy, come back, as long as we all went together.
And this is how
then that was the thing. If you were in a group.
Yeah. We would also stay out late. We would stay out even past the streetlights because, someone would bring flashlights and we would be playing like tag in the dark or hide and seek in the
Oh,
dark.
I
It was
would
like
get
a
in
whole
trouble
different
for
world.
that.
You weren't allowed
Well,
out
at some point they would like
past dusk.
at some point they would like bring us in because we couldn't make so much noise. Like, like we had to be considerate to the other.
Yeah.
We'd play
people,
out pretty
but-
late in my neighborhood as kids. But I think another important point to bring up is that this is how the parents grew up too. They would leave the house and they wouldn't be able to get in touch with their
Yeah.
parents. So our parents just kind of expected that things would be this way because this is how it was for them. And then you introduce the smartphones and things begin to change.
It's because they used to send us to school with 50 cents taped to a binder and say, do you know how to call collect?
Oh, man.
If you lose these 50 cents.
One of the most traumatic moments in my life as a kid was when everybody in high school had a cell phone except for me. And I tried to call my mom on the damn payphone at the school to have her pick me up. And she didn't answer for whatever reason. I was so upset. I went home crying that day. I was like, I need a cell phone if I'm going to start staying late for TV tech class. Let me be the nerd I've truly been destined to be. But I need to stay after her. Then you need to pick me up in the minivan.
I don't think I got a phone till I was like 16. I was definitely the last of my friends too to get a phone.
It was 9th or 10th grade for me.
I was 14 when I got mine.
Laura was the youngest.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was so cool too, because my mom pulled up to pick me up from school and she had my like activated phone there and like gave it to me.
That's funny.
I guess she was getting a new phone and they had some kind of like 2-for-1 deal if you activated a new line. So she was like, well, okay. And she got it for me. And I was so excited. I still have the same phone number. As a matter of fact, I've always had that phone number.
I do too.
I do also
Yeah.
have my same phone number from high school.
My first phone was a Razor.
Oh,
Mine was a Nokia.
mine was a little Nokia brick.
Okay. My mom had the
Yeah.
Nokia brick thing. Yeah. And I'd play Snake on her phone all the time. I thought that was so cool.
I don't think mine had Snake, and I was really jealous of everybody else's that had Snake because there was like nothing on the phone. I couldn't really do anything with it.
The Razor was like the iPhone. When that thing came out,
I never had a Razor.
oh, it was so
or the
cool.
T-Mobile Sidekick. I always wanted that.
Oh, I had one of those and I loved
man,
it.
I would have been so jealous. You would have been so cool in my eyes. You are so cool, but
Okay, so moving on here, somebody else on Reddit said, I miss the era of everyone still being behind screen names and avatars. I had many good friends I only knew by their screen names. Back then, it wasn't about trying to become an influencer and interactions felt more genuine. We all feel this one. I mean, we all started with fake names.
Phoenix Wrath 88 over here.
Yeah. I was on AIM like in Stink 64 because I was like mocking my sister or something because she was really into NSYNC.
Oh my God.
I
You
just thought it
weren't
was
really
clever.
into NSYNC.
I was though. That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But for some reason I thought I was just being clever. Then I had ASIMS 89, which I still have for my Apple ID, which I just hate. Spelling my name with a Z in the year 2024.
It's still a Z.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I just blocked that out. Isn't that your email? Oh, well, I shouldn't say that.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
No, my
It's not-
personal email does not use a Z anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Pam, what was your handle? Do you remember?
It was like Purple Stars 66 or
Stars.
something like that. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I think we changed it so much too. Like, cause like you would get together with your friends and you'd be like, which one sounds better? And every other week people would have different screen names, which made it like impossible to keep up with anybody. But
Yeah.
That was also
I
like
feel
the thing that you would like, sometimes you would change it because you're like, oh, the yearbook's coming out. I need to make sure I have a cool screen name to like write into people's yearbooks so that they'll talk to me over the summer.
Yeah. It's interesting because back then it was so normal to have a handle and not share your real name. But now if you don't online, if you don't share your real name, you look like a creep. And you probably are a creep.
Yeah.
But and the social media networks kind of pushed us that way to sharing our real name. I think Facebook was the first to do this, and that's when things really started to change.
Well, and the
think you could
profile
still-
picture too.
Yeah. I will say like in like the fandom spaces that still exist, I think you still see screen names. Like if you go over to Tumblr, most people are not using their real names on there or on any of like the fan fiction sites. That's where you
True.
still see screen names. So if you strike up a camaraderie in the comments or whatever, you're probably still thinking, oh, I'm talking to my friend, like Blue, Sapphire, whatever.
Right. I definitely remember making friends through fan fiction sites because I wrote a lot of fan fiction at that point in time. And I never knew any of their names, but we chatted all the time.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
did.
Me too.
I also, back in the day, I was addicted to The Sims Online. And there you had a fake personality too. You had a fake avatar. Everything was fake. And I fell in love with a girl on The Sims Online, like legit. I had a crush on a particular Sim,
Wow.
like who was being played by another human somewhere across the universe. And I never found out her real name. But
Do you
damn, she was
remember
pretty.
her screen name?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I have to ask, what made you fall in love with this Sim?
We were spending a lot of time playing together. And yeah, that's it. I can't even remember, but I was addicted to The Sims Online. It got really bad. I probably told this story on the pod at one point, but my parents had to cut me off from The Sims Online because it was going through their credit card and they just blocked it. I could not stop. I would get home from school and just play Sims Online until it was time for bed every day.
I have so many questions.
My first
though.
addiction.
Did you and your Sim crush ever wahoo?
You know what? I know we kissed, and that was a big day for me. Like, legitimately, that was a big
wow.
day. Yeah. I don't know if we woohooed. I can't remember.
Okay.
Can't remember. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can try to work the magic of the algorithm to get this clip of the show to get viral on TikTok so we can find your Sim girlfriend.
People of Earth,
2005.
where's my girl from The Sims Online? My name was Cletus Putum. Do you remember me? Unfortunately, I'm not kidding. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but that was my name on The Sims Online. It was fun.
I forgot about that.
TikTok will find anyone. So I kind of weirdly have faith.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so anyway, somebody else said, I feel like we got the best of both worlds. We know what it's like to not have tech and what it's like to have it and to be able to use it effectively. And actually, to this point, Pam, do you want to bring up this point about like being better at diagnosing tech?
Yeah, well, basically, I have been reading quite a few articles, and there's some subreddits too that talk about how millennials are actually better at technology in some ways than our younger counterparts, specifically Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And the reason why is not necessarily because they don't know technology. It's because we had to work with some janky ass shit, And so we grew up knowing how to troubleshoot or even like how to install things we may or may not have had pirated, like games or software or music. And all of that kind of helps us understand the back end, or did help us understand the back end of computers and software programs more so than younger generations, because they're so used to taking technology out of a box and everything is intuitive. It's really easy to learn. So all of a sudden, when you have to troubleshoot something, if you don't know how to troubleshoot anything, your brain just kind of freezes. And you're like, what do I do with this? I don't know. So I thought that that was particularly interesting. And I do think about technology aside, even things like being on MySpace and LiveJournal taught me how to code.
Yes.
Not super well, but like I can code the basic stuff.
Yeah. What
And
you
it's
need.
literally because of that.
And on a similar note, it feels like we're adapting faster because of evolving technology. Like, oh, AI? No problem. We lived through the birth of MySpace and Facebook and dial-up and cable and DSL.
Yeah, it really does feel like as a generation, and don't come for me, Gen Z or the Millennials or Alphas, but it does feel like we're the generation that is the least triggered by AI. Like, just Personally, I've had conversations with a few Gen Zers who are fucking shook about AI. And I'm just like, I mean, okay, I get it, but it's not the Terminator.
Well, I was just going to say, we've already accepted our fate to technology. Gen Z has yet to hit that, or maybe now they have, thanks to AI.
I was just going to say, I think it's because we grew up repeatedly hearing that they weren't going to have jobs for us anyway. So AI coming to take our jobs, nothing we haven't heard before. They told us we were going to be unemployed forever.
Yeah. We're just fatalists at the end of the day.
Right.
Millennials are just like, okay, kill me, I guess. Fine.
Millennial fatalists. Maybe that should have been the name of this podcast.
Maybe.
Jenna said she learned HTML through Neopets. That's a good one.
That was another big one. Yeah.
Somebody else said, I was one of those children that did things online they never should have done, and my grandparents had no idea because computers were too confusing. That's a good one. Now you can't hide stuff. You got parental controls built into even the phones and tablets. You can't hide anything. I was hiding my porn activity all the time. There was one traumatic experience, though, when I didn't get away with it. I was watching porn at my grandparents' house because my grandparents had a computer in the back room, and I had the door locked, and my dad comes to check in on me, and it's locked, and he's like, open up, and I can't. We're running like Windows 95 back in the day. You can't like quickly close your tabs and all that.
Yeah.
So I delay opening the door because the computer's right next to the door. There's no excuse why I can't open it really quick. And why do I have the door locked anyway? Well, I open it because he's practically busting down my grandparents' door and he sees what I'm looking at. He gave me a talk after that, but
oh no.
Oh my gosh. Why didn't you just turn the computer
Turn the
off?
monitor off.
That's
I
what
used to do that.
I was panicking.
I used to do that when I was reading fan fiction way too late because I wasn't supposed to be up.
My dad
I would
comes
just
in.
turn the monitor off.
But then my dad comes in and wonders, what were you doing? I was just sitting here. Like
I changed and I forgot to unlock the door, Dad.
I should have just shut off the computer, but yeah. The monitor wouldn't have cut it because the fans were probably spinning on the computer.
Yeah, that's when you have to take one for the team. Like the first thing they used to teach us was like, don't force shut down the computer. I would have done it.
Yeah, worth it. Worth corrupting that database.
Exactly.
I definitely would have. The grandparents wouldn't have noticed. But I have to ask, what kind of porn was it? Do you remember?
I think it was gay porn. I don't remember anything beyond that because I remember the talk after that being gay porn related.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think at that time it was kind of just shrugged off as like, hey, he's just a curious kid.
Curious.
He's just looking at dicks. No, nothing to see here.
Did you mention how old you were when this happened?
I don't know, 14?
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's like old enough to be curious. I could see how he would have just been like, oh, he wanted to know.
Yeah, just curious what other dicks look like. And what better place to be curious than at your freaking grandparents' house?
Yeah. I was going to ask you some more follow-up questions, but I think it might be too personal.
We're reaching into the well here between this, my Sims Online crush.
You just have the best stories.
You really do.
Thanks. Oh, hey, on a related note, speaking of great stories, remember when I told you all that I pooped my pants in high school?
Yeah. How could I forget?
Well, I was playing a card game with friends over the weekend. And keep in mind, these are my new Bumble friends, so they don't know the real me. And one of the cards was like, when was the last time you pooped your pants?
Oh, no.
And it was my card. I was like, oh, God. Oh, no. So I think they think different of me now. But
oh, you
told the truth?
Yeah, of course. We were all being very honest.
Oh, that's very big of you.
I honestly, I would have lied.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I guess it would have just come out now, and your one very sweet friend does listen.
Ty.
We've
Yeah.
since learned. Yeah. We love you, Tyler.
He wasn't there that day, but full disclosure, I did consider lying because that's so embarrassing. Pooping your pants in high school and leaving the poop there in the hallway? Unforgivable.
I wonder if, do you guys remember when we talked about what was the incident at your high school? I wonder, if for some people their incident is your poop in the hallway.
People of TikTok, was that your incident? Let us know.
Oh, that's our second viral clip of the week.
I'm crying.
I know, me too. Okay, so we do need a second to regroup and wipe our tears from all this pain and trauma that we're digging into. But first, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to clean my pants, and we'll be right back. A couple more here to visit today. Somebody said one of the best things about being a millennial was couch and co-op gaming. It was so much better than online gaming. Late nights of Doritos, Pop, and GoldenEye with the squad. And on a similar note, someone said growing up with the N64 and GameCube was fun, and I don't think I've loved any Nintendo console quite like I loved the GameCube. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were that house that kept all the we never got rid of our consoles, me and my brother. So the neighborhood kids would all come over and we would just do like sudden death tournaments on all of them because we had like the original Nintendo one and the GameCube, the N64, later one of the PlayStations. So
yeah,
that was always really fun.
And online gaming certainly has its pros. It's nice to, like, if I wanted, I could game with Laura tonight. But
you don't want to.
There is something about sitting around a TV with friends, a little TV too. You know, you're crowded together next to your bed, just playing games together. But on a related note, this got me thinking, we got to enjoy like quirky design styles, thinking about Nintendo 64 or the GameCube. They were so unique. Everything now is so sterile and plain and boxy. You see that with cars, especially right now. They're trending towards this more boxy look. And think about like architecture too. Compare an old movie theater to a new movie theater or an old Vegas casino to a new one. The new ones, they all look the same. I love walking into an older movie theater these days because a lot of them still do exist and you get some of that 90s architecture and it feels like you're going back in time in such a good way.
Yeah, I think the thing is it just had character, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it was like architectural genius. I don't think of that when I think of construction in the 90s, but it definitely had character. And to your point, everything now is just minimalist, gray. That's the theme.
Yeah.
People just didn't like bulldoze either over they just built around old facets, right?
Exactly.
Pam, do you want to introduce this one?
Sure. One thing I was thinking about when we were talking about discussing this was that I just feel like we got to be like kids for longer, kind of. I don't know about you guys, but I just kind of feel like I remember when we would go to Disneyland, for example, or like if we went anywhere that like had somebody dressed up as like, like Barney or Mickey Mouse or some other character. I never saw parents like automatically telling their kids like, oh, that's just somebody in a suit. It was always like, look, it's Mickey, look, it's Barney, look, it's Tinkerbell, like it almost kind of felt like there was an emphasis and an effort made to keep magic alive longer for kids. And it probably did help that there was no internet, and we all didn't have cell phones. We couldn't go home and Google, like, is Santa real? Before our parents told us or before we kind of came to ourselves. And I just think there's something so sweet about that.
Yeah.
I agree.
You always ran the risk of somebody in school telling you this news, but
right.
With the internet, you just really open yourself up more. But on a related note, you said Googling, is Santa real? Setting aside childhood fantasies, just having a debate with friends used to be so different too. Just imagine back in the 90s when you're sitting there with your friends and let's say we were older. Let's say we were in our 20s, which we weren't, but let's say we were. And you're just sitting around having a discussion and somebody has a question about something like, oh, who starred in that movie again? Or, oh, what day is Mother's Day this year? What do we do these days? We just open our phone and we get an answer in 2 seconds. Back then, somebody just had to throw out a guess and that was that. Like there was no fact checking in real time.
Yeah. Or I mean, even worse now, how many of us say, hey, Alexa,
Yeah.
tell me this information? Like we don't even necessarily have to even pick up the phone and like do anything tactile anymore to get that information. But yeah, the number of times I've been in conversations where someone, and I mean, I've been that someone before, if someone says something that I'm like 95% sure is false, I'll definitely Google it on the spot and I won't be a dick about it, but I'll be like, oh, actually, it looks like XYZ thing. If it matters. If it's not something that matters, I don't give a shit. But if it's like somebody's spreading misinformation, I don't have time for that, and I will be that asshole. But it's funny because it feels like misinformation is so much worse now. Not
Online?
to say that it wasn't, well, not just online, but just in the way that people communicate and approach other people. And I think part of it is because people who are really, really immersed in the online space think that that is how people in the real world talk. And it is not.
Yeah.
And so they'll bring that like Twitter feed energy into a fucking conversation. And that just feels like something to fondly reminisce about, not having that
that is
in conversation.
That is a really good point. There's so much that gets carried over into the real world, and you're like, you clearly have spent too much time online. The phrase chronically online is something I've been thinking about a lot over the last few months.
Yes.
People
and here's the thing. We are all online quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the fact that we know people that were like, holy shit, you're online too much, says something.
Oh, I think I'm chronically online, but not in a way that like I'm like high functioning chronically online.
Well, I think you can say that for all of us, honestly.
Yeah, but gotta call a spade, you know?
Yeah. I think I still miss some things. And the reason I say that is because I miss that whole man or bear, which would you rather run into in the woods debate.
You did.
Somebody asked me about that last week or on actually just yesterday, Monday. I was like, what are you I have not heard about this at all. What are you talking about? So I'm still missing some things somehow. But yeah, then there's those online jokes that you see Twitter have a field day with for 2 weeks. And if you were to go ask somebody offline, you know, your neighbor about it, they never would have heard about it.
Yeah. Everything goes faster now, though. Like we're already past man or bear, for example, for the most part.
I'm not.
Right.
I was just introduced yesterday, so I'm still thinking about it.
But I mean, like the things that you miss, like I'm just saying, like it makes sense because the cycle, it moves faster, way faster even than it did 5-10 years ago.
Well, so for you two, man or bear? Who would you? Which
bear.
You'd rather?
Bear.
You both would rather run into a bear in the woods. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, if I'm in the woods and you're telling me bear or a random man who's also out in the woods and there's no one else around, hell no, because I can probably predict what to expect from a wild animal. And if I stay away from it and don't fuck with it, it's probably going to leave me alone.
Right. And also, like,
can't say the same for a man.
How to ward off a bear if it gets too close, right? You make yourself big, you make a lot of noise, you back away slow.
Yeah.
It's not going to work on a man.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately.
Yep.
Although, have we tried?
No.
Maybe we should try this show
I'm gonna
challenge.
try that next time instead of saying, I have a boyfriend, sorry.
Pam, I'll meet you in Yosemite. I'll go find a bear. And we'll put you on a path and you can see a bear to your left.
Find a man too?
I'll be the man. But of course, there will be boundaries.
Oh, I'd run towards you though. That doesn't count.
You'd run towards me, yeah, and then we'd both run away from the bear because I'm terrified of the bear.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew will be shouting at you to protect him, shield me from
I was
the bear.
going to say I'm hiding behind Andrew.
I said it last year. I am such a baby when it comes to the whole bear situation. Like
you saw bears,
from the safety of my vehicle. But I went on a trail.
Okay, well, I will be in your vehicle.
I went on a trail by myself in Yosemite in the morning, and I was so afraid of running into a bear. I would stop when I thought I heard something. I'd look around. It was a parody. It was ridiculous how paranoid I was.
I really reminisce on fondly from my childhood, and that I think is not to say it doesn't exist today, but I think it just looks different. Again, I talked about it at the top of the show, but the amount of time that I spent playing outside, and me and my friends would be outside for hours almost every day, every chance we could get. We all wanted to get out of the house and we wanted to play. We shot hoops. We played street hockey. We went over to like the jungle gym. We would go like walk around at the high school because they had a bunch of really cool facilities. And like we were just kind of out and about, wandering around, exploring, getting to know our neighborhood, climbing trees, doing stupid shit. And I look back on that really, really fondly. And at least from what I can see, I don't have kids myself, but from what I can see of my friends who do have kids, from what I just see from kids in my neighborhood, it just doesn't seem like it's the same anymore. And I understand why, right? Like, I think there are a lot more concerns, to the point that was raised at the top of the show about parents wanting to make sure their kids are safe and having that degree of connectedness that we didn't have back then. But I think it's still kind of a bummer, because I have some really happy childhood memories from being able to be on the lam like that for an entire day and not have it be a big deal.
Yeah, it's got to be less. They're spending less time outside just because of everything that can entertain you inside these days. Most of all, tablets, streaming.
Mm-hmm. And danger, unfortunately. Like, that's a big thing too. I mean, there was, I think there was a false sense of security probably when we were growing up, because bad things happen in all decades, but it just kind of felt like people were more apt to take care of each other. I grew up in a small city. I feel like the sense of community was very strong in that place. I go back now and the feeling just isn't the same, because there's a lot of new people that have moved in and they've shifted the culture to be something that I don't particularly enjoy. And I just kind of feel like, you know, I had always thought, oh, this would be a great place to come back and raise my kids. Like, if I had them, if I had kids, I don't know if I would feel that way now, because it's a beautiful place, but the heart of the city is so different. So it's odd.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you think that people who are younger who live there might feel a lot different because they don't know any other way? Whereas you've seen it evolve.
Probably.
It's kind of how we feel about, like, not as important of an example, but like you play a video game or read a book that you haven't since you were a kid, and you're like, you know what? This just feels different these days. But to somebody who's younger, it may still might still capture that magic that you once felt. Yeah,
maybe. I mean, like, you know, to Laura's point about like running around through the trees and stuff like that. Like, I remember doing that. There were creeks everywhere. We would come back with our shoes soaked and my mom would be so mad, you know, we would catch tadpoles for hours, like all that stuff. It's like so great. And all of that is still there. It's just, like I said, like, I don't know if like, it feels as safe as it used to. And I would wager to think it doesn't, because of some of like the comments I see coming out of places like next door, you know, where like parents today are complaining about things. And I know that's just like a small fraction of the people, but it's like, this is
there's more paranoia than ever too, because we are online so much and all the media coverage focusing on the bad things. When you're getting less of that when you were younger, whether you're a parent or a kid, everything looks better. And maybe things haven't changed, at least in some ways. It's just that we've become more paranoid, so we don't let our kids run free for hours.
It's funny because violent crime is actually down.
Right.
From when it was then. So, I mean, arguably it was more dangerous when we were out running around unsupervised. But I think because we weren't all as connected as we are now, we didn't hear the horror stories. Whereas now we're really attuned to things like human trafficking and the risks that are associated with that. And obviously that is a very real problem. I don't want to diminish it. But we didn't have that. So it just wasn't something people were as worried about.
I think we actually
That's a good point.
spoke about that data that you just mentioned, Laura, on the show a couple of years ago. There is just outsized media coverage for less crime these days, and it makes us more paranoid. Also, life is just full of risks. Parents let us out. Maybe they weren't entirely comfortable with it, but they also knew you're likely to get back home safe. You're not going to get struck by a lightning bolt. Sure, it could happen. Sure, there are lots of bad people out there, but that's life. I can hop in my yacht later today and an orca whale could take it out. I don't know.
I also feel like this is another good question for your sister. Be like, hey, sister, are you going to let the kids play outside until the streetlights come on?
Yeah, that's a good question. We asked my sister if Trey, her 6-year-old, knows her phone number, because these days we just program each other's phone numbers into our phones and we never think about the phone number again. I only know my mom's phone and my home phone number from back in the day just because I used to have to dial it. I couldn't tell you Laura and Pam's number, even though we text and occasionally talk on the phone. I barely know Pat's number, and I call him at least a couple times a week.
Yeah, there's a definite line though, because there are phone numbers that I still have memorized to heart because they're things that I needed to know before smartphones, including the phone number of my childhood home in Grand Prairie, Texas. I still know that number by heart, and I could call it right now if I wanted to. It would probably be pretty disturbing to them to get a surprise bitch from Millennial. I used to live here. Surprise.
Sorry.
And by the way, I forgot to finish my story. So Becca...
Oh, sorry.
No, it's my fault. I forgot to end this. Becca does teach the kids her phone number. But when I asked her this question, she said to me she had just realized when I asked that Trey, the 6-year-old, doesn't know how to make a phone call on his own. So she just showed him how to do that on, I guess, the iPhone. They don't have a rotary phone sitting at home, or any phone for that matter. Landline.
Man, that's how you flummox the kids nowadays. Show them a landline and ask them how to use it.
It's scary watching my 3-year-old, 4-year-old nephew operate an iPhone. They're way too good at it.
Oh, yeah. My niece is the same way.
Yeah.
Same with the iPad. It's crazy.
If you have something else to add to this discussion about what the best things are about being a millennial, maybe something more present day, do let us know. Coming up in After Dark today, speaking of phones, we're going to do something we haven't done in a while. We're going to be calling a handful of listeners today, making quick calls and asking them a random question, and they're going to have to answer on the spot. Like, what's the last thing you disagreed with us on? What's the biggest subtle green flag in a new partner or friend? What's the most basic thing you're terrible at? And it's going to harken back to the surprise bitch days. Yes, I even still have the sound effect. I'll have to play it.
Are we going to play it?
Sure.
Oh my God.
Aww.
Exciting.
Surprise, bitch. So yeah, and this will be the first of multiple installments of this because we have 24 numbers currently to call, and we're only going to get to a few of them today. So this will be a new series in After Dark.
After Dark is part of Mega Millennial, which you get every week when you're a patron or an Apple Podcast subscriber. Plus, it's ad-free. Visit patreon.com/millennial to pledge today. Spotify users will find a banner at the top of our show page, or Apple Podcast users can tap into the show and subscribe.
We also have other Patreon benefits, like us surprise bitching you on the spot in After Dark, live stream access, our monthly Zoom hangout, a new physical gift every year, and more. It's easy to get started. Apple Podcasts and Patreon offer 7-day free trials and annual subscription discounts.
And one last way to financially support us is by going to mugglemillennial.etsy.com, and you can buy a Millennial 2020 t-shirt or the Millennial Adulting Planner. And we also have some MuggleCast gifts there. So it's time for recommendations. What do you got, Laura?
I'm going to follow up on your boys recommendation from last week and recommend Gen V on Amazon Prime. Gen V is in the boys universe, takes place after season 3 of the boys, leading up to season 4, which comes out in about a month. So highly recommend watching that if you haven't seen it yet to get up to speed so that you're ready for season 4 of the boys.
And given all the nostalgia talk we had going on today's episode, I wanted to recommend Pen 15 on Hulu. That's the name of the show. But if you're a millennial, you probably remember Pen 15 had a moment when we were growing up. So this show is so great. It's by Anna Konkle and Maya Erskine, and they wrote and star in this series, which is set in the early 2000s. And they play 13-year-old versions of themselves, even though they're in their 30s when they're making the show. And they basically just explore what it's like being a middle school girl in the early 2000s. Some of it is pretty cringe, but ultimately super relatable. And the show is super funny. I think it's only like 2 or 3 seasons. So it's a pretty short watch, and you can find that over on Hulu.
Speaking of being chronically online, I was hearing a lot about Challengers online. Have either of you seen this movie yet, starring Zendaya?
Not
but
yet.
I want to.
Please go see it, like, tonight. It is so good. It's a love triangle set in the world of tennis that is homoerotic as fuck. Like, they keep you on the edge of your seat. I was really impressed by this movie. Pat loved it too. It's been getting a lot of talk online because some people haven't loved it, but there's so many layers and there's a lot of manipulation going on. And it was really good. Amazing soundtrack as well. Definitely check it out. Make sure you're following the show in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you leave us a review on Apple, we will read it on air.
To stay in touch with us, email millennialshow@gmail.com or visit millennialshow.com. While there, you'll also find links to all of our social media accounts, and Spotify users can also leave feedback directly within an episode.
After Dark starts in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pamela.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.